Hello everyone, and welcome to the review videos for your third comprehensive assignment in managerial accounting. In this comprehensive assignment, you are going to be tasked with completing a two-step process. In the first step, you're going to have to look at the potential cost savings a company could experience by outsourcing production of one of their components of production. And then, in the second part, after you've figured out the cost savings, you're going to figure out what is the optimal way that the company can spend that money that they've saved now that they've outsourced production by picking from a bunch of mutually exclusive potential projects. And you're going to have to decipher which of those projects will benefit the company's income the most by using some of those long-term managerial decision-making techniques covered in Chapter 26, and specifically payback method, the ARR method, and the NPV method. Our company, for this example, is going to be Orion Telescopes Incorporated, and they manufacture high-powered telescopes for home use. They are currently looking to expand their operations, but they lack the available capital to do so. Well, their management believes that it can free up capital by outsourcing production of Part 100A, an ocular lens, to another firm which operates overseas. Currently, this part is being manufactured internally at a joint use facility. So the facility that we're manufacturing this part at, it doesn't just make 100As. It makes a ton of different parts which we use in our telescopes, which means if we outsource 100As, there's certain fixed costs related to that facility that we're still going to have to pay because we're still making stuff there. So the rent on that facility, the insurance on that facility, any taxes that have to be paid on that facility, we're still going to have to pay. Those fixed costs are going to be considered unavoidable, and they're irrelevant to our decision making. However, a small portion of those fixed costs are avoidable. So Orion believes that by outsourcing production of 100A, they can get out of some kind of cost. Maybe they lay off a salaried foreman that oversaw the production of ocular lenses. I don't know what it is, but there's a small portion of those fixed costs which we can get out of if we outsource. So we need to make an informed decision about how much money we expect to save if we outsource production. Well, to do that, we need to know some things, and it's provided here for us in the information. We need to know what amount of 100As we're going to need for production. For Orion, that's 20,000. We need to know the cost that this firm we are going to potentially outsource to is going to charge us for each ocular lens that they make for us, and that cost is $30. We need to know if we manufacture internally, how much we can expect to pay per unit for each one of these things when it comes to its cost components. So we know that each 100A, if we make it internally, is going to cost us $20 in direct materials, $9 in direct labor, and $6 in variable overhead. And in total, we need to know what portion of the fixed costs that are being incurred by this joint use facility we can get out of if we choose to outsource production of 100A. And the answer to that is $100,000. So we have two options. We can continue to make this ourselves, or we can outsource production to this other firm which operates overseas. Well, since we have two different options here, the best way to find out our expected cost savings is to perform a differential analysis for our two options. So our first option is to continue to manufacture internally. Well, what costs will Orion Telescopes have to incur if they continue to manufacture these parts internally that they wouldn't incur if they outsourced? What costs are relevant to our decision making? Well, if we outsource, we're not going to have to pay for direct materials anymore. So the total cost of direct materials to make Part 100A is a very relevant piece of information for our decision making. How much can Orion expect to pay in total for direct materials if they continue to produce these internally? Well, they know they're going to have to make 20,000 of them because that's what's needed for production. And they know that each one of those is going to cost $20 in direct materials to produce. So if they have to spend $20 a piece on 20,000 units, that's a total of $400,000 they can expect to spend on direct materials if they continue to manufacture Part 100A internally. And by that same logic, we can find the expected cost of direct labor and variable manufacturing overhead by taking the quantity that we need, 20,000, and multiplying by that particular cost component per unit. So each 100A we make causes us to incur about $9 in direct labor costs, and if we make 20,000 of them, Orion can expect to spend $180,000 on direct labor. Each of the 20,000 Part 100As we need for production are going to cause us to incur about $6 of overhead, variable overhead, which means in total Orion is going to incur $120,000 in variable manufacturing overhead producing these Part 100As if they elect to continue to do so internally. And then the last piece of relevant information we have are costs that they have to pay that they wouldn't have to if they outsource are those avoidable fixed costs. If we are going to outsource production, we're no longer going to have to pay this $100,000 of avoidable fixed manufacturing costs. Purchase cost of outsourcing, nothing goes into this section because that's not the option that we are analyzing right here. So what is their total relevant cost related to manufacturing this part internally? Well, if they continue to do so, they're going to have to pay $400 for materials, $180 for labor, $120 in variable manufacturing overhead, and $100,000 in avoidable fixed costs. So the sum of those four numbers is our total relevant cost for our decision. It is going to cost Orion about $800,000 to manufacture these parts internally during the upcoming year. What if we outsource production? Well, if we outsource production, we're not going to have to pay for direct materials, nor labor, nor variable overhead, and we're going to not have to pay those fixed costs anymore. So the only thing that matters here is our purchase cost. Well, this firm that is offered to produce these for us says we'll charge you $30 per ocular lens to make Part 100A for you. And we know we're going to need 20,000 of them, so if we buy 20,000 of them at $30 a piece, that's $600,000 we're going to have to pay to outsource, which is all of the relevant costs of outsourcing production. So what's the difference? Well, if we continue to manufacture internally, we're going to have to pay $400,000 more for direct materials. We are going to have to pay $180,000 more for direct labor. We're going to have to pay $120,000 more for variable manufacturing overhead. We're going to have to pay $100,000 in fixed costs, which we could have avoided had we outsourced. But we're not going to have to pay that $600,000 for outsourcing production, and we're going to make that a negative. So in total, what is the difference? What is the increase in cost over manufacturing internally versus outsourcing production? Well, we're going to have to incur those $800,000 worth of cost to manufacture internally. Outsourcing production is only going to cost us $600,000, which means that it costs $200,000 more to manufacture these parts internally. And if we want to free up capital, we should outsource because it's cheaper. And if we outsource, how much money of our limited cash flow are we going to free up to undertake other projects? The answer to that is that's difference, the result of our differential analysis, which is $200,000.